This week on Quality Digest Live, debunking the myths behind Six Sigma.
Plus, we chat with John Patterson, co-author of the book Wired and Dangerous. That and more when we come back.
Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for October 14th, 2011. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Dirk Ducharme, Editor-in-Chief of Quality Digest.
And I'm publisher Mike Richmond. We're going to start this week with a reminder. As always, we want your feedback on the topics that we're covering here today. If you see something that you want to weigh in on, email us right away, and that's important, right away, at qdl@qualitydigest.com, and we'll address your comments live on the air later in the show. We've got a comment you told me, Dirk, already on the story that I'm going to be covering. So, but other comments we want on either the article I'm going to be covering from Jay Arthur's story that appeared this week, or on the interview we're going to be doing with John Patterson on his book Wired and Dangerous here in a few moments. So get those comments in now, and we'll get them on the air for you. Okay, well, we start this week with an article, as I said, from Jay Arthur, and that appeared in Tuesday's issue of Quality Digest Daily. The title of the piece was Debunking Six Sigma Folklore Myths. Now, I ran into Jay at Quality Expo in Chicago last month, and he mentioned to me that he had some feature articles and some ideas for some articles that he would like to write that he thought were sure to ruffle some feathers, and I think this one fits the bill.
I think it does.
I think it's a good ruffler.
Judging by a couple of the letters we got.
Judging by some of the letters we got, yes. I think that it was definitely one that got some attention. Well, Jay writes about Lean Six Sigma in this piece, and again, he takes from the perspective of debunking some of the myths that go along with Lean Six Sigma. Now Jay is a proponent of Lean and of Six Sigma, and Lean Six Sigma particularly. He's a proponent of it. He's a supporter of it. So he's coming at this not from critiquing Six Sigma or Lean Six Sigma as a system, but looking at it from the perspective of, well, what are things that are being done that really aren't effective? What are the things that people buy into that they think work and they think are the right ways to do this, but really aren't in many cases? So we had these on the screen share. I want to show you some of the myths, and he talks about three myths in particular that I thought were quite interesting, and we're going to show them to you right here. The first one is top leadership commitment. Again, this is a
that's
myth.
A biggie. I mean,
it's a biggie.
It's always Six Sigma's got to be led from the top down.
This is the first thing you hear from any time you go to a Six Sigma conference or you talk to anybody who's a practitioner of Six Sigma or is undergoing an implementation. We need the support from the top down. We need management to support us. And Jay points out that's a myth. Now, obviously, that there does need to be support from management. This management needs to at least understand that this is what the company's doing and support it from that perspective. But Jay's talking about that Jack Welch kind of Six Sigma top-down push, which can work. I mean, it certainly worked for GM in a period of time. But the idea that's how it's going to work, is that the management's going to decide we're going to do this, and they're going to basically push it down on the troops, and everybody's going to get it that way. Now, that's not really the most effective way to do Lean Six Sigma. The effective way to do it is to have it bubble up from the bottom. Have the people that are involved in a process, that are on the shop floor or interacting with customers regularly, deal with it.
Why is that? I mean, why would that be more important than the support from management?
Well, support from management, again, is important, but the idea of how it's being driven, because management isn't involved in that day-to-day. They don't really know. They understand on a broad perspective. We're going to get to the broadness of these implementations in a minute. But they understand from a broad perspective what they want to do, but they don't understand what the rank and file is dealing with in many cases. They don't understand really the problems on that minute level, on that micro level that person is dealing with. So without that understanding, you can try to implement change, but it's not really going to ever take. It's not going to root in the organization the way that Jay is talking about, the necessity for this. So that's a big one. The next one is which ties right into that, is bigger is better. Now, the myth always is that, well, we've got to make this the broadest, widest possible program because we want to make sure that we capture as many problems as we can. We want to knock them off in one big felt swoop. This idea of the economies of scale. We have a big organization, a lot of different divisions, so we're going to implement Six Sigma across all those.
I guess I would almost say that almost ties into the first one too. Is the need for big projects are probably being driven by management. We want to see a return on our training investment, for instance.
Sure, absolutely. But again, that's not really the way it works, and that's not really the way it works effectively. And as Jay points out, that there's the myth of that's the way it best works, but it's not really the truth. The truth of the matter is that you need to look at these projects on a micro basis. Again, on a small level, you need to look at this and say, well, what are the small projects that are going on that we can make changes in now that will very quickly kind of ripple through the organization, that will lead to greater, larger success as we go.
Sure.
So start small, look at that low-hanging fruit and go from there. That's really important. The third one, and again, all these are really interrelated in a very large measure. The third one of these things that he's talking about here is the idea that training and certification is a universal good. If you're going to implement Lean Six Sigma projects in your company, what you should do is you should train everybody. Everybody should be a black belt, master black belt. Now,
right.
We had an article from Paul Naismith a few weeks ago, or maybe a month or so ago, where he talked about the fact that he underwent black belt training for a few weeks.
Right, learned hundreds of tools.
Learned 100 plus tools, a lot of money, certainly very expensive for his sponsoring organization, and he uses, he said, like 3 of them, 4 of them. Right. And Jay refers to that too. He said, of all the things you learn in a black belt training course, you might use a few of them. You know, over the course of weeks that you go through this training and the thousands of dollars that you're going to spend, how much are you going to get out of that you're really going to be able to apply? His point is that what you want to do instead is you want to be able to apply that right away. You want to avoid the training. I mean, you want to train, obviously,
right.
but you don't want to have that be the focus where that everybody gets trained because everybody's got to know how to do everything. No.
Right.
You want to, the better way to do it if you're going to train is train from a short perspective. Train for a day if you can. Get those people back to what they're doing. Get them working on projects right away. Give them those vital few tools, and he refers to this, the vital few tools they need to really implement change, to really drive change in what they're particularly doing in their day-to-day.
And that would drive your training costs
way down,
right?
Way down,
sure.
and the efficiency way up. Yeah. You know, in a sense, you could look at overtraining as an inefficiency, as waste. You know, because you're spending all this time, all this money to give people something that, sure, they may use it, and they probably will at some point. But Jay's point is, you want to get them going. You want to get the improvement happening right away, as quickly as possible.
Right.
So his idea, as opposed to looking at these myths, his idea of looking at the folklore is, what's the reality of this? What really does work? And he points to the U.S. Army as an example. And the U.S. Army has what they call the crawl, walk, run principle of how they implement their Lean Six Sigma projects, where they're going to do it quickly. They're going to get to it, and they're going to start small. They're going to start with a few key stakeholders that are going to be proponents for this, and they're going to drive that change through the organization now.
And these stakeholders, they're not necessarily
top management, and rarely are. Rarely are they very high up on the echelon. Many times they're people that are doing the work, that are at the business end of the machine. They know what change they need to see, and they're able to take these tools, the few tools that they really need and they use, and drive the change, and then improve the organization from there. Those people become proponents for change throughout the organization, and again, that bubbling up process as opposed to the top-down pushing works much, much better. And I think Jay's point is really well taken here. You know, I think that he's making the observation that Lean Six Sigma it can work, it's effective, but it's got to be handled with reality, not looking at what you think is the reality of it, but looking past those myths, past the folklore, and looking at what really actually works. So I think that's really important. Now, you had mentioned we had a comment on this story.
We already got a comment on this story.
Which I'd love to hear. I'm interested in this.
Actually, what do we got here? I'm sorry.
And this came in, I think this came in earlier today.
Actually, it came in just before the show. Okay. Somebody who saw what we were talking about. This one is from Stephen. Who I will mention right now is actually an ASQ CQE, certified quality engineer. When are we just going to admit that Six Sigma doesn't work and move on with life? ASQ seems to be trying to breathe life into a dying corpse and foist it on the world or presidential candidates. That's another story. And he goes on, but he kind of goes on the same vein. Sure. But obviously Stephen is he's one of that, I would say almost a growing crowd, maybe, who's kind of fed up with Six Sigma.
Well, you know, we saw a lot of these comments as well when we had Michael Hire and Tom Heisek on the show a couple of months back in Phoenix. I think that well, and I don't want to talk for Jay Arthur here, but it's kind of beside the point of what Jay is talking about here. Jay's talking about the comment really doesn't really directly address because we had another comment as well on the article. It didn't really address the point. And Six Sigma is like that. It gets politicized in many cases. I think that as we always say, Six Sigma is a tool. Six Sigma, Lean Six Sigma are tools that you can use to improve your organization. And is it a be-all and end-all? I don't think so. And I think that the proponents that say this is it, this is the only way you're going to improve your organization are wrong. Those that say it doesn't work at all, and I think I'd caution Stephen on this as well, I don't think that's really true either. I think that you have to understand it's one tool in the toolkit. The point that Jay said is that if you're going to look into this tool, and if you're going to consider this as a tool that can help improve your organization, just have the reality of it. Don't look at it and go into it with the myths and those rose-colored glasses. I think that might be what Stephen's referring to a certain extent, is this idea that management in particular goes into it and has this notion of how it's going to go, which isn't really effective. That, I think, more than anything else, creates some of the discord, some of the political controversy around whether Six Sigma works or not. And if you do it that way with the rose-colored glasses, if you buy into some of the myths that Jay talks about in his piece, I think that might be a reaction that people would have to Six Sigma and Lean Six Sigma implementation.
Yeah, so. Definitely Six Sigma is always a hot topic.
It's always a hot topic, and certainly we encourage people to always write us about this, and we want to comment and we want to engage with people and talk about these topics. So.
Absolutely. Well, moving on to our next story, but before we go, I'd like to ask you a question.
Okay.
Do you do any shopping on the internet?
Sure.
That sort of thing?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Do you use any of the rating services like Yelp or the stars on Amazon or that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I do. I've never actually made a comment, but I've read the comments. You can't help but read them. I mean, if you go online and if you Google anything, you're going to run into, at the top of the search engines.
Yeah, enter in a hotel. If you're looking for a hotel, you might get Yelp right at the very top. I had that experience
on my honeymoon, sure, where everywhere we went, we'd Google and we see where we were going to go. And it was like, here's this listing of what the comments were and the ratings and all that stuff. Sure. Yeah.
Well, I use them too, and I use them a lot to help with purchase decisions. And I will say that there have been times that the online rankings have actually caused me to move from one brand to another, or to use select service providers that maybe I'd never even heard of. Well, if you are a provider of a product or service, that information had better have you shaking in your boots, because you and I are just one of millions of consumers who are wired and dangerous. Which just happens to be the title of a new book on service in the Internet Age by authors Chip Bell and John Patterson.
That's right,
and
there it is.
We're actually really happy to have on the show today one of the co-authors, John Patterson. Chip couldn't make it, but we do have John with us. Hello, John. Do we have you on the line?
Yeah, I'm here. How you guys doing?
Oh, pretty good. How are you? Well,
doing fantastic.
Well, I guess you would agree with what I just said, that today's providers have to be aware of the power of wired customers?
I would probably more than agree. I'm sure you're not surprised about that. But here's just a couple of statistics to get us started. But we know that in the last 12 months, customers have raised their expectations 33%. So what they expect of all the providers that they decide to do business with has increased 33%. So expectations are higher than they've ever been. And I know this is a shock. They're going to continue to increase as customers continue to change. But what you guys were just talking about is we know from some very new research that 72% of customers research providers' customer care reputation online prior to using that provider. And 62% will either stop using a provider if they are using them or avoid using the provider based on that bad reputation.
Well, let me jump in just a little bit on that, John.
Yeah.
Our customers, our online customers, more likely to present negative comments than they are positive comments? I mean, are these comments online in these rating systems, are they skewed one direction or the other?
No, typically they're not skewed. Now, do you find an occasion where someone has had a skewed comment or two? You do. But overall, the customers are as open and honest online as they are in person.
Okay, so is there so much? Let me speak from personal experience. I do use online rankings a lot, but one thing that as a consumer, I'm actually kind of getting burned out on some of these. I mean, it seems like everybody has got a comment to make. either good or bad, and there's so many comments out there, and they seem to be spread, you know, the gamut. I mean, you can kind of get a feel for a brand, but that's, for me, that my own personal experience, that seems to be kind of the extent of it. I get a feel, you know, like people tend to like this brand, or they tend not to like that brand. But I guess I'm just inundated with all these ratings. I mean, can you address that a little bit?
Well, there's definitely a tremendous amount of data out there, and we've all had way too many surveys sent to us and requested that we fill out. But you know what customers are doing in addition to using the ratings, customers are just using a simple search to see what's out there, either whether they're searching on Google or they're searching on Twitter to see what people are saying about an organization. And that can be done, and be done very quickly, so they stay out of it just being inundated with ratings. I would tell you that I think Amazon's done a fabulous job with ratings. You guys referenced that. It's very easy to spin down from a book and look at the number of 5-star ratings or whatever without feeling like you're overwhelmed with data. So some people are making it easier for folks, but there's no question that we do operate in an age of data overload. So you need to find a way that, you know, works for you.
John, I'd like to jump in with a quick question here. We're approaching this from the perspective of the consumers of reviews, and those of us that go out and we visit a site and we read the reviews that are there on a product we're perhaps considering that we want to purchase. I'm interested in the process of those that actually go out and post those reviews. And you mentioned something earlier that said that people who post these reviews are as honest. It would seem to me that they might be more honest behind that mask of anonymity somewhat on the internet. They might be more honest. Maybe they're too honest in some cases. Maybe they tend to want to spew, and maybe that skews it in that way. Would you care to comment on that?
Well, I don't really have any research on that. Typically what we talk with our clients about is we talk with our clients who are companies who are certainly listening to those reviews, to listen carefully to multiple channels so that if they feel like someone is maybe too honest, that they quickly respond to them. But I don't have any data on whether or not they're spewing more than they would, to use your term, if they were doing it in person.
Let's go to the other side of the equation. So I think we can all agree that we are wired as consumers. We're wired and dangerous, as you point out in your book. What is the message, your message, yours and Chip's message to companies that whose names appear on internet rating systems of whatever type? I mean, if your customers are out there making comments, what is your proactive response to those comments? Or ahead of time, what are you doing? What should a company do to make sure that, let's say, they don't end up on the negative end of the comment list?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd like to start with that.
Okay.
From a proactive perspective, because I think that's a fabulous question. The first thing that we recommend is that you listen to multiple channels, because there are so many different channels. So you need to have a good listening strategy so you know what's being said about you. But the companies that are doing well today are companies who are very transparent in the way they operate and the way they provide service, and companies that make it easy for you to reach a human if you have a need. One of our favorite examples is to look at Zappos. You can do everything with Zappos.com online that you want to, but on every page you're on, there is an easy connection should you wish to connect with a person. And you can make that connection by email, you can make it by chat, or you can make it live by telephone. And when you get that connection, you get world-class service. So they're very, very proactive in making it easy for the customer to talk to them, and they want to offer great service. I'm sure everybody's read about, they're a service company that just happens to be in the retail business. But by being proactive and making it easy for you to connect, you alleviate some of what you guys are talking about, which is the upset customer who's frustrated and takes to the internet to post their rankings. And we'd much rather have you deal with that customer, face to face, so to speak, or ear to ear, so you have an opportunity to respond to them.
Now let's talk a little bit about what happens if your company is the subject of a big internet tirade on, you know, a problem with your product or service. And in fact, I think you even talk about a couple of these in your book. How's a company supposed to respond when that happens?
Well, the formula that we talk about is one that we talk about often. We call this, you know, service recovery, and it is the need to reestablish at least a good relationship, if not a great one. And so, urgency is important. If there is a need to apologize, it needs to be genuine and the apology offered early. We need to show the customer what we're doing to fix it, and do it in a way that provides them confidence that we can solve their problem. If the campaign is one that the organization believes is unfair, we believe that if they're proactive and they use multi-channel communications and they're transparent in their response, customers usually figure out when they've got an unfair situation. We're all pretty good at figuring out whether this is authentic or not, as long as the organization has been authentic with us. And so those are the kinds of things that we suggest for organizations. But you know, the first thing is what you guys referenced earlier, which is you need some radar, if you will. So you need early detection. So when you can first get an idea something like this is happening, you're able to respond with urgency.
You know, that was a perfect lead-in to something I wanted to ask you. Just coincidentally, this week, a big news item was Blackberry knocked off the internet. I guess some of their servers went down. Millions of Blackberry users weren't able to, you know, instant message or email each other and stuff. And then just yesterday, the founder and president of Research in Motion, the company that makes Blackberries, put out a video on YouTube. I want to play it for you and just get your comment on it.
Sure.
Hold on one second. Let's run this now.
I'm Mike Lazaridis, founder of Research in Motion. Since launching BlackBerry in 1999, we had reliable, real-time communications around the world. We did not deliver on that goal this week, not even close. I apologize for the service outages this week. We've let many of you down. But let me assure you that we're working round the clock to fix this. You expect better from us, and I expect better from us. It's too soon to say that this issue is fully resolved, but let me give you more detail about what's happening.
Okay, so that was an interesting little. The thing that struck me about what he said is what you just outlined a few seconds ago, is Mike Lazaridis. His first thing out of his mouth was, "We screwed up.
We're sorry."
Second thing was, "We're sorry." Third thing was,
we will do better.
We will do better, and also, let me tell you what we're going to do, not just kind of waving our hand, "Don't worry, we're going to fix it." He said, we didn't listen to the whole clip there, but after that little clip we just listened to, he mentions 4 or 5 things that they are actually doing, some very specific things that they're doing to fix the problem. And also, very interestingly, for me, at least at the end of this, he says, "I'd like to give you an ETA, but I can't. Just trust us that we're working to fix this as fast as we can. I'm not going to blow smoke in your face and say, oh yeah, we're going to have this fixed in 2 days. We're working on it, and hopefully we'll get it fixed as quick as we can." Is that the kind of response you're talking about?
It is. I mean, it's. I haven't seen the video other than what we just listened to, but the formula that he used is one that is very similar to one we would suggest everybody use, because you start with the fact that customers don't expect organizations to be perfect. They know we're going to make mistakes, but they do expect organizations to care and to fix those mistakes rapidly. So when he starts off by owning the issue, you're going to immediately dissolve some of the concern. I was in an airport. I was in Dulles Airport, sitting next to a guy who was absolutely irate because his BlackBerry was down. And it's funny that you should ask me about this. And I heard him leave a phone message to a guy that says, if you're sending me something, I can't get it right now because I guess BlackBerry has a horrible problem. And he went on and on and on.
Oh,
but,
wow.
You could just see how inconvenient he felt. And I thought, wow. And so, first of all, the ownership of the problem, the fact that he said the magic words when there's an issue, and that is, we apologize. I'm so sorry this happened. And what that does is it takes a lot of the fight out of your customer. When you apologize, you immediately tell the customer, okay, there's no fight here. They've owned the problem. They've said they're sorry. Now they're going to look and see what's next. And what he did, that's something fantastic, is let me tell you what we're doing about it. The customer wants transparency. Show them how you're responding, and then do it with confidence. So the customer feels that they're going to fix this, and they're working as hard as they can. That's what the customer wants to hear. And if you can't give them an ETA, do what he did. Be honest about it. I sat on an airplane a couple weeks ago. The pilot came on and he said, so I know you're wondering why we're sitting here. Let me tell you what's going on. And he explained an air traffic control delay based on some weather in the mid-Atlantic states. I live in Atlanta, so I was flying out of Atlanta that day, headed up north. He said, I'd love to tell you when we're leaving, but I don't know. But I will tell you that as soon as I do know, I'll be back to you. He came back on about 10 minutes later and he said, we don't have an update yet, just wanted to let you know. And then as soon as he got an update, he told us what was going on. I've been on airplanes where they don't do that, and of course people just get very, very upset. But by doing that, he immediately diffused everything that was going on, and people know that if it's an air traffic control delay, it isn't the airline, it isn't the pilot, it's just what it is, and they can deal with that. And he told us whether he knew he had an ETA or he didn't, he let us know that. And all that transparency and truth-telling and including the customer in the situation, that's just what it sounds like RIM did by saying, let me tell you what we're doing. So make me a partner here. Let me know what's going on. That's what customers are looking for today, and there are very few organizations that do it. So I'd give him a pretty high grade for what he did.
Well, John, thanks. We'd love to talk to you more, but we're about out of our time here. So for our audience, I will tell you, we've been talking to John Patterson. John is co-author, along with Chip Bell, of Wired and Dangerous. In short, this is a book about what service companies need to know about today's wired and dangerous customers, and what you should be doing to proactively prepare yourself for these customers, and what you should do should you have some sort of event and you need to implement some sort of service recovery. Yep. So John, once again, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, John.
Oh, thank you. This was a blast, guys. I appreciate the opportunity. Have a great day.
Hey, you too.
We'll talk to you again soon.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, great stuff there with John. Thank you, Dirk, for that insightful interview as always, and we hope you enjoyed that as well. Well, so want to talk a little bit about what we have coming up in upcoming episodes here of Quality Digest Live.
That's right.
We have Subir Chowdhury is going to be on, I believe, next week. We have Subir scheduled.
We're trying to get him on. Yep.
Trying to get him on for next week, and we're going to have an interview just like we did with Jim last week and John here today. Subir is going to be talking about his new book, The Power of Leo. Leo standing for Listen, Enrich, and Optimize. We've been talking about this a bit, and it's an interesting read. I think you'll appreciate the interview with Subir, so look out for that. In addition, we're going to be having Keith Bevins of the National Physical Laboratory, NPL, in the UK, and he's going to come on and talk about the measurement study that they did at CMSC in Phoenix a couple of months ago. And
is that also next week, or
no? That's going to be down the line. That'll be probably either the end of this month or early in November.
Okay. Keep your eyes open.
Keep your eyes open for that. That was a really interesting study that we participated in as well, and the results now are out. So keep an eye on that.
Okay. Also coming up next week in Quality Digest Daily, our email newsletter. Jim Harrington talks about the Chinese auto industry, the country's attitude toward the environment, and more. This is a follow-on from a live talk that we had with Jim last week.
Yep.
Also from our new columnist, Bob Betty, 3 things a nonprofit can learn from a nonprofit. Here's a teaser. You may think of the nonprofit industry as nice people doing nice things, but guess what? In most cases, nonprofits are also corporations striving to deliver better results, maximize revenue, and improve productivity, just like everybody else.
Great examples.
And also, new columnist Jim Benson looks at what would happen if we stopped prioritizing deadlines and instead improve quality and rate of delivery. And my favorite, next week, statistics with gummy bear catapults.
Oh, that's great. It's great stuff.
Love throwing those gummy bears around.
We can't wait for that.
Right.
And I understand we had a piece of fan mail.
Oh,
came in.
Yes, we did
at the end of last week's show. Right at the very end of last week's show.
We always love to plug the fan mail,
and that's why we always encourage people to get those comments in early.
That's right. This was. Why don't you read that?
Sure. This is from Larry, and Larry writes, "I haven't attended one of these in a little while. I thought the Harrington interview was excellent and a solid discussion, very enjoyable."
That's right.
Well, thank you, Larry. Thank you for checking that out. I think we actually got a piece of mail in today, I don't know what it says, so this is kind of like Christmas morning. I mean,
let me see. Actually, that one's about what do we get today? First article on inspection. Oh, I'm not even sure what that's about.
Okay. Well,
some of these emails just kind of trickle in.
Yeah.
This is another one on Six Sigma.
Okay.
Hey, an old guy here. This is Jerry.
At, yeah.
Okay, Jerry. Yeah. Like I'm not old.
Jerry,
hey, an old guy
his
here.
Last name Attrick?
No, Jerry Attrick. Funny.
Sorry.
Took me a bit.
I tried.
Okay. Hey, an old guy here. A 70-year-old semi-retired educator. In my biased judgment, Six Sigma is one of many useful tools we in the field may use. Six Sigma has become an economically driven product being sold. If I can read between the lines there, I think he's saying it's like anything, it's a good idea, but then it becomes kind of
a commodity.
A commodity.
Sure. I mean, that's a fair point. I mean, we hear that a lot from readers as well. But again, it's a tool.
Yep.
And use it for what you can. I think Jay's piece was very insightful as to good ways to use Six Sigma, Lean Six Sigma. So I think there's some value there. But thank you, Jerry, for the comment on that as well.
Fun show today.
Great show. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Quick half an hour, but thank you all for joining us. We want to wish you a great weekend. We'll be back at you next week with another full week of Quality Digest Daily.
Right.
Next Friday with another episode of Quality Digest Live. So
tell your friends.
Tell your friends.
Lots of friends.
Come on aboard and join us, and we'd love to hear from you. So have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
So long.
Jerry